Good morning, and what on earth is happening in this country concerning our politics? It is difficult to remember a time when we've been more divided.
America is locked in battle.
A massive march spanning miles led by Black Lives Matter.
We started getting complaints from all across Metro Atlanta.
Today, anti-mask protesters yelled, played music, and brought signs.
We've done really an extraordinary job. We're going down, not up.
Fix the shortage of PPE for our healthcare workers before you tee off another round.
He's against God, he's against guns.
I'm worried about what he'll do in the next year in presidency.
Hi, I'm Amber, and welcome back to Convince Me. In this series, we're talking about the various reasons on why people don't vote. We hope that by the end of this, you'll have all the tools and the confidence that you'll need to use your voice to vote. And if you haven't seen our first and second episodes, make sure you go and check that out. In this day and age, I've been hearing a lot of different reasons on why our young people are so discouraged by our voting system. And so that's why I got together with some of my friends to discuss those issues, as well as discuss misconceptions and misinformation about the voting process. So let me introduce you to them.
Hi, I'm Whitney Mixter.
Hi, I'm Nik Dodani.
I'm Sampson McCormick.
Hey, baby.
And this is Convince Me.
In Sydney, they came in their thousands. A sea of people with one goal: to save the planet.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? The world is waking up. And change is coming whether you like it or not.
People here in Minnesota are saying to people in New York, to people in California, to people in Memphis, to people all across this nation, enough is enough.
A generation that's lived their whole lives with the threat of mass shootings.
Everyone who has been touched by the cold grip of gun violence understands. For those who still can't comprehend because they refuse to, I'll tell you where it went. Right into the ground, 6 feet deep.
I have a very special guest right now, and I'm so excited. Sampson, welcome to the conversation. Please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm Sampson McCormick. I am a stand-up comedian, writer, and filmmaker, all around hustling man, sexy black man, alive black man. That's really important. I'm a black man who's still alive. I've used comedy now for 20 years to talk about issues ranging from Black queerness to racism, socio-political issues, and it's been very effective in helping bring people together and have very important conversations that people can feel uncomfortable having a lot of the time.
How do you see religion in playing into people expressing their political views?
It's one of the worst things that people can have to try to make rational decisions with.
Right?
Rational decisions that involve other people's lives and humanity. You know, it's been used to create war, to devastate families, to make people hate themselves, hate each other. And this is something that people also use as a political tool on our emotions, tell us stuff that we think is going to make us feel good and hope that will solve our problems. And then we take it and run with it. And we apply that to how we deal with our gay children, you know, how we deal with other things in society rather than looking at it as a human issue. Like, I don't subscribe necessarily to what you're doing, so why should that apply to me? It's an unfair way to fight, is what I look at it as.
So you once described your work as healing work. How do you think that this could be applied to communities who are hurting so much right now in order to motivate them and get them to want to get more involved in politics?
Humor allows people to understand that, yes, these issues exist. Maybe I might talk about racism on stage and a white person will walk out of there and they will walk out of that theater and they will say, I never thought about it like that. And so now they have some friends that they can go back and have this conversation with. I saw this comedian the other night and he talked about microaggressions. I never knew that microaggressions existed. So now they're able to check themselves and their friends.
I want to move into what I want to call accountability culture. It's all about understanding what someone did wrong, how that hurts someone, and how you can learn and grow from that situation and move forward. So apologizing, acknowledging, and moving forward, trying to become a better person. And I think that's the only way we're going to grow as humans, as a society, as a nation, is being able to be accountable for ourselves, our actions, and what we have and haven't done to contribute to the bigger picture of making this better for all of us.
And then on the other hand, you know, if we're talking about some issue that a Black queer person faces, a lot of times, if I'm in the South, for instance, I may bring up something that they've never been able to talk about out loud because we believe that our issues only apply to us, right?
Right.
And so when you hear a person stand up on stage and they share your experience, oh my God, he said it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, it's now they feel affirmed.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to move through their life with more confidence, more self-esteem, more of these positive things that we need, positive reinforcement. And it allows us to just go back into our communities, collective communities, separate communities, and have conversations that hopefully allow us to do work, you know, politically, socially.
Could you maybe talk about some stigmas within your communities that have desensitized people on not feeling motivated to vote or getting involved politically?
As far as, you know, stigma, one of the biggest stigmas that I hear people say, and this is one that I've heard at bars a lot, is that, oh, I can't go vote because I'm not political, without realizing that everything that we do, if you're a minority in this country, you know, it's political.
Right.
So, you know, you have to be involved. Do you have to go to every town hall meeting? Absolutely not. Do you need to watch CNN all day? Absolutely not. But you have to know what's going on.
Right.
You have to know who's in your community and what type of laws that they're passing. You have to be involved in that.
Do you think that young marginalized kids aren't being taught how to be civically engaged?
I do believe that our young folks are more politically involved than a lot of our elders are.
Yeah, true.
You know, because a lot of our elders, I even listened to them about the marches. They be like, baby, I'm tired. You know, I got the gout and I got my legs bad, my feet bad, and my high blood pressure, my diabetes. But, you know, these young folks are out here saying, you know, we're going to be kicking some ass.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that our young folks are more engaged. You know, they're tweeting, you know, they're able to read things. They're able to, you know, hold people accountable. They're willing to get out in the streets. I'm more confident in our youth, and I really respect our youth. And even though, you know, we've been out for a while, you know, doing what we do, I support our youth and I listen to them. They're fired up. They're really breaking down a lot of things that were set up in society out of ignorance, out of control. You know, 10 years ago, just 5 years ago, we weren't talking about anything like non-binary, gender non-conforming, and that's been around for years. That's been around since way back. People, that's nothing new. For a lot of people, politics is too deep, and I want people to get over the notion that, you know, because you're involved politically, that means that it can't be fun. Because, you know, if you really know what's going on in politics and how simple it really is, just how all it is knowing what's going on, asking some questions about it, and looking at how it affects you and how it goes unchecked, it really can be fun. Because once you start roasting these people, it's a great time.
Yeah.
You know, I want people to get over the idea that it's not fun, because politics is fun and it really can improve our quality of life.
One of the things I'm really passionate about is getting our communities and marginalized communities to realize our power, and that we have the power to make a list of demands that we want from our next presidential candidates and have them met. Whether, and you know, and it goes further than just our president, our local representatives. We have what it takes to make sure that those things happen and actual change happens to protect our lives, right? And to provide us with what we need. So I want to ask you, how do you think that we can mobilize together to create those lists of demands that affect us all and actually have them met?
Starting thoroughly on that local level. Just imagine if in all major Black cities, even small towns where, you know, a lot of minorities are civically engaged, you know, how that would start to affect us on the state level. Mm-hmm. Because now these little towns, these little cities all come together. You're starting to see all these changes. Now that's going to start affecting the state. We're putting pressure on our state representatives. Right. And then they're going to start putting pressure on the larger representatives. And that's how you create change everywhere else.
I want to know how you feel. Do you feel like I feel, and feeling like everyone should think about the list of demands and the fact that it affects most of us, and that we should be vocal about it? We should be paying attention to these things. Like, the Equality Act, and how just something simple like that makes it so LGBTQ lives, Black lives, poor lives, everyone is protected.
I mean, a lot of the demands that we have are very simple. Stop closing polling sites. Start holding police accountable for killing Black people. I mean, you shouldn't have to ask or demand simple things like that, but simple things like that. And I think in addition to that, we also need to take action as minority communities, because our votes and our dollars are more powerful. I think the most powerful, actually.
Absolutely.
Than anybody's. Our issue is we don't collectively, we've done it at times, and we know it's effective.
Right.
Because we've seen what the reactions have been to that. We've seen the power. We've seen Black Wall Street. There have been several Black political movements. There have been several Black queer political movements. I was a part of the DC Coalition for, rights for Black LGBTQ people and things like that. And every time we mobilize like that, we've always allowed some bullshit to either to separate us or pacify us. For instance, we know what a lot of the demands are now. There's several lists of demands that are circulating on the internet now that have made their way to mainstream media. And we have seen no accountability in regards to those demands, right? Mm-hmm. So we're throwing statues in rivers. Right. We taking Aunt Jemima got a perm now and some glasses on with some pearls, and they making her look like Tyra Banks, and we're putting Black Lives Matter on the sidewalk. I live in the hood. We do that already. We've been painting streets and graffiti and stuff like that. That's hip hop culture. We don't need symbolism. We need action. Okay.
We
need to start taking
policy.
Action.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that the issue is that we've come so far. We really have. We've come so far, and it is discouraging because if you imagine where we come from, and I don't know if you've been to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful museum that folks need to go to, but you start literally in the bottom of the museum. There's a slave ship. I went up in there high the first time I went.
Did you?
I almost ran out of there, honey.
Wow, yeah.
And you look at where we come from, and I mean, I'm not going to give it all away, but for instance, you go in and you look on the wall and you see they may have captured 400, people of African descent.
Yeah.
And, during the voyage, so on the wall they have, we got 400 people, and out of 400 people, 30 arrived alive. That's insane. Things like that, the war, the violence and all that type of stuff. And we have overcome all that to get to where we are now.
Yep.
So that should be very promising about not only where we can go, but what's in us that will allow us to get there.
Our history books I'm not going to say our history books, the history books that are currently used in schools right now as education is not telling the proper history. It's telling their history and how they feel like we fit in their history. But it's not even. Yeah, we've been fighting this for so long. We as Black people created armies. And that's what ended slavery, is they were tired of losing. They lost the biggest battle in Florida, and that's when they started to gain ground, and that's when they started to realize, okay, we got to let them go. We keep losing these fights, right?
That's right.
And that's part of history that is not taught. And so I think if it was taught, then more of us would grow up knowing that, hey, if there's an obstacle in our way, we got this. Me and my cousins, all of us, we got this. So,
you said the cousins, when the cousins get together, you already know. We're
unstoppable. This was such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being with us, Sampson. I truly appreciate you and your platform and what you do. And please continue the work. I already know that you are, so I don't have to say that. I'm going
to continue, and hopefully we'll be out soon. I want to encourage people who are watching, if you have Instagram, which is 2020, you bet I have Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Sampson McCormick, SampsonMcCormick. Y'all that sat here and listened to a conversation. We've laughed, we've gotten emotional, we've been educated, all those different things. You need to understand that the power lies within you, in your hands and your feet. Take your ass down there and go vote.
Now, the United States is the only country that funds our public education through property taxes. Now, what this does is it ensures that children from poorer neighborhoods receive a poorer education, perpetuating wealth inequality. Looking at the educational system with a more far-reaching perspective is essential to creating real foundational change within this country. We need our elected officials to acknowledge how the current educational system sets the groundwork for maintaining racial and economic disparities within this country. The demands that need to be met from our elected officials are as follows. Incorporating accurate historical accounts into the curriculum, as well as current events, with the knowledge that accuracy is not a political statement in itself. We need continued teacher training programs and revisiting the concept of tenure to assure lower teacher burnout and prioritize that quality education is continuously provided to students. We need universal preschool for all children. We need to revisit educational approaches and incorporate more into the curriculum, including social and emotional learning, anti-bullying, and conflict resolution skills. Federal compensation for state school funding, which allows equal access to quality education for every American child. We need to end high-stakes testing that tends to affect marginalized groups at higher levels, maintaining disparities in receiving more funding. We need to provide free college or technical school for every qualified student, assuring that the qualifications are inclusive and achievable. We need student loan forgiveness. We need to reduce the interest rate for repayment of loans to a nominal, if not 0% rate.
My parents immigrated to the United States from India in the 1980s. They've been citizens for decades. They had me and my sister here, and it's allowed us to thrive. Every family who wants that should be able to have that. There shouldn't be so many barriers to legal immigration. Families should not be separated at the border. Kids should not be in cages. There should be an easy and common sense pathway for people to come to this country if they want to. I mean, we have plenty of space here. Obviously, this country is built by immigrants, it's run by immigrants, and it's a shame that we have policies that discourage it. And frankly, it's a little racist and xenophobic, and we need to change that. We need to vote in elected officials and politicians who support immigration, and not just around the edges, but really a whole comprehensive immigration reform that can lead to citizenship for our dreamers, that reunites children with their families, that abolishes the camps that exist at our border, and makes it easy for people who want a better life to get a better life.
So within our healthcare system, I feel like there are several different tiers that need to be addressed. First of all, healthcare has become an industry rather than a system. And I choose the word industry because the monetization of healthcare has now seemingly taken priority over the well-being of individuals. And that needs to change, period. Healthcare should be affordable and accessible to all Americans. And it's really about figuring out how to get to that place of universal accessibility that we need to hold our elected officials accountable to. In its current state of things, things are treated more as a sick care system as opposed to a healthcare system. Afflicted Americans go see a doctor at the time of illness, the time that they're sick, at which point, with the way things are put in place, prescriptions and procedures are itemized, which essentially incentivizes doctors to keep people sick with reliance on treatments or exploring various care pathways. But why are we not identifying the root of what is making people sick in the first place? Why is there little to no motivation to prioritize preventative care within the system? Or, for that matter, analyze how other sectors, such as environment or economy, directly contribute to maintaining suffering health within communities, primarily those of marginalized groups. Instead of simply accepting the fact, for example, that Black women are 4 times more likely to die during childbirth or right after, we need to look at why these women's voices are often not heard in reporting pain levels, or self-advocacy in general. And this stems from our country's systemic racism. Although at first glance, topics like this may seem autonomous, I promise you, they are completely interrelated. Universal health care needs to be provided to all Americans. We need to take inflammatory costs out of medical practices by limiting pharmaceutical involvement with hospitals. We need to increase preventative care efforts, including involving other government agencies as key players within healthcare, such as the FDA and EPA, requiring them to keep toxins out of our food supply and environment. Included in this preventative care effort, more emphasis needs to be put on treatment of mental health. This is a major thing. Mental health needs to be taken as seriously as physically manifesting issues. In order to do this, we need to destigmatize and decriminalize mental illness and provide accessible resources for both prescription and therapeutic modalities. Now, on a more local level, healthy habits and resources need to be promoted on a town and statewide basis. This is where mayors and other local officials need to step up to the plate and collectively look at their populations and analyze the areas that need improvement and make adjustments based on the information provided.
It's no secret that the United States has a problem with gun violence. I mean, it's well documented. It's tragic every time there is a mass shooting. It's not really surprising. And the reaction to it is equally as predictable. It's best captured by The Onion that runs the same headline every time there's a mass shooting. And it reads, "No way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens." It doesn't have to be that way. Like, it really doesn't. We can enact common sense gun reforms that are supported by a majority of Americans across political parties. The only thing standing in our way are the politicians and elected officials who are more beholden to the NRA and the gun lobby than they are average Americans. We have to vote them out.
So climate change, although it's a hotbed item amongst debates and campaign platforms, especially amongst progressive, it tends to lose practical implications steam once these elections have passed. Now, this is a major global issue, if not the biggest global issue there is. The warmest 20 years on record have taken place within the past 22 years due to carbon pollution. Higher temperatures have worsened air quality, they've negatively affected crop production, they've increased the spread of infectious diseases, and they threaten our freshwater deposits. The problem is that in order to curb the extreme level of environmental destruction that has been caused, extreme actions need to be taken. That ultimately means taking drastic steps primarily within big business and industry sectors that funnel a lot of the money back into the same government that needs to lay the groundwork for regulations. The United States, for example, is the second leading emitter of greenhouse gases behind China and the leading emitter per capita. But still, the United States and President Donald Trump has confirmed pulling the US out of the Paris Agreement. And according to the IMF, $5 trillion per year goes to subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, with the US leading the way amongst the G7. Tackling this issue needs to be a global collaborative effort among leaders, but has to run strong all the way to local elected officials in order to maintain efforts within smaller communities to benefit not only the overall picture, but the immediate health and well-being of their communities. The following things need to be demanded of our elected officials. Create climate change task force, including the top environmental leaders and scientists from around the world, to begin a discussion and plan of action for attacking this on a global level. We need to re-enter the Paris Climate Agreement. Since climate change affects global health, poverty, hunger, and national security, international agreements like the Paris Agreement are crucial to implementing global solutions. We need to ban clear-cutting forests and offshore and pipeline drilling. We need to instate a carbon tax, utilize the taxes collected for providing offset tax breaks to green and carbon-free companies and products. On a more local level, we need to incentivize solar power development with cost breaks, straightforward and accessible permitting, and requiring large energy-consuming businesses to switch to clean energy and large waste-producing agencies to switch to composting, and that includes government-owned and operated agencies.
Every single worker in America should be paid a fair living wage. That's it. That's the whole video.
We all know what Democrat and Republican mean today, their ideals, their figureheads, and their policies. The Democrats were first formed in the 1820s. The Republican Party formed later in 1854, only a decade before the Civil War. Initially, the party was actually formed by those who opposed slavery and was the party that helped to get Lincoln elected. However, by the end of the Civil War, many white Northerners had become rich capitalists who began to lead the party. Let's fast forward to the 1920s. The rights of Black Americans was no longer at the forefront of politics, and the Republicans prioritized economic policies as a party of big business. Democrats, on the other hand, were starting to push ideals of progressivism as a way to combat the elite Republicans. Finally, in the 1950s and 60s, the civil rights movement was beginning to shape the American political landscape. Democratic President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, solidifying the Democratic Party's more progressive stance on rights for minorities. In the last 40 years, both parties have solidified their position on opposite ends of the political spectrum. Black people have reclaimed the Democratic Party as a beacon of progressive ideals, an example of what a party made up of marginalized people and their allies can do.
Hey guys, welcome back to Convince Me. We have a very special interview that I'm so excited about. My New Orleans bae. We have Big Freedia with us. Hey, Big Freedia.
Hey, baby. How you doing today?
I'm good now that I'm with you. You're a big reason why I feel so good when I come out there. You know what I mean? Like to see representation in the communities that I represent or that I'm a part of, and to come out there and have a good time and know that I could be free and just feel good. So I thank you for that. Well, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm born and raised here in New Orleans. I've been blessed to be a musician and have the chance to tour the world and opportunity to make people happy all around the world.
So that brings me to want to ask you, how have you used your platform to raise awareness and to give back to the communities that are underrepresented?
Well, I think it's very important to represent those communities. So I use my platform in every possible way that I know how. I try to, offer my platform to speak for all of those communities that don't have a voice or nobody to speak for them. And if we don't do it, who else will? So much is happening in the world right now. And it's important for everyone who has a platform to use it to do something that can help change the world, because we all have to do this together. Change comes from all of us. And if we're all, working towards the same goal, I think we will reach what we're pushing for.
What has been your favorite outreach project that you've done or worked on?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that I can say. Definitely No Kids Hunger here in New Orleans, where we allow kids to have meals throughout the day. And if, when they don't have, their parents can't afford stuff, or they just have to text a number and they're able to get meals, they're able to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So how did you get started in creating the lunch program? What channels did you have to go through in order to help out these kids?
So what I did was I wanted to start a new nonprofit that can help, me stream things here for kids in New Orleans. And what we did was, instead of me trying to run everything through my nonprofit, I wanted to help companies that was already established. And we reached out to 3 different companies, and No Kid Hunger was being one. And we contacted them, and they was very happy to partner with us. And then I just started to feed them, and help them and bring awareness and, donate money. And it's all through a text app. And it was simple to do. They were very happy and they were very appreciative. I went to the school where they had some kids at, and I talked to the kids, and I actually got to see exactly what they do and what they offer. And so we set up a meeting, and then I started to help them out, and it went from there. Building a bond with people that you want to help, or looking for that type of organization that you want to support. They're out there on the internet, and what I did was just started asking around, asking my managers, asking my team to investigate it. And they went to work. And I was like, yep, I'll do that. This is something I'm definitely down to represent.
Just it's such a good partnership, because I know how much you care about the city, and it shows about how much you care about the youth, them being the future generation, and us needing to do a good job at preparing them to, build this future in a way to like change it for the better?
I tell them all the time, it starts with the kids because these kids learn what they see, what's around them. So it's very important that we teach our children the right stuff. It's very important that we try to open up so many things to help them. A lot of times when I was coming up young, we didn't have a lot to do and we had to find things to do. So we need to keep creating these safe spaces and these activities in these centers to have our youth involved in positive stuff that they're going to have fun and be kids, but also learning stuff about life and learning how to become a young adult into adulthood. If you don't know, how can you do better? Right. If we do, and we have the resources that are teaching us, we can do better. A lot of times, if my mama didn't push me and say, oh, you're going to get up and go vote, I wouldn't have won. I wouldn't have knew how important it was. And she was like, this is for us. This is going to help the community. So you have to know. I think it's something that should be taught in school. Mm-hmm. I think they have days where they do like a fake voting where they're teaching the children how, if they would go, they'll have a couple of voting machines at the school and actually teaching them and letting them know the importance and getting them ready for young adulthood, and when they turn 18, that their voice is heard and they are counted. And so I just think that, a lot of times they're not teaching us because they don't want us to do better.
Let's talk about like the school to jail pipeline and how easy it is for kids to go from, getting in trouble at school to ending up in jail, right? And especially in Louisiana and the South, that's like a very real thing. So I feel like how do we combat that? And at the same time, how do we empower people, especially people in that area, to vote and make sure that these things are, combated and we can really fight that statistic?
It's up to the government officials to change this, because at some cases, you have a white person and a black person. They did the same thing. Got the same charges, but the black person get 40 years and the white person get 2 years. Something has to change, and that comes on the government level. And it starts at home. It starts with the government. It starts with us as a community and protecting our children and coming together and speaking out on things that is affecting the community and crimes as well.
You touched on something so important that's a big part of this series as well, is paying attention to local elections, right? Because the judges that you were saying that are against us, the district attorneys, all these people are people that we vote in. How important do you think it is to have Black and LGBTQ spaces?
I think it's very important because we need safe havens all around the world. We need safe havens just to protect us, that we can go to our own space and feel comfortable and feel accepted and feel loved and feel like we could just be free and lay our hair down. So all of those spaces are important, from inside of school, in communities, clubs, theaters, like everywhere around the world. We need our spaces just like everybody else, because we are just like everybody else.
Absolutely. Louisiana has the least strict gun laws out of anywhere else. How do you think that this affects these marginalized communities?
Well, I think that it affects them very much. It has affected me because I've been shot. It has affected my family because my brother was killed by gun violence. It has affected my community inside and all around New Orleans because we've lost so many people to gun violence. Mm-hmm. So if you see this, why not make a change? Why not make gun laws stricter? Why not try to get the guns off the streets? Why not put better protection on the streets when you have all of this going on? These background checks need to be tougher. You can go in the academy and you can walk out with the gun the same day. Mm-hmm. And what are people walking around with assault rifles for? They're not going to war. We need somebody who's really going to fight for the better cause and to make a true change for the world.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you so much for contributing to Convince Me. Is there anything you would love to leave anybody with?
It was my pleasure. I just want to leave everybody with this message, sending my love and all of my good spirits and all of my great energy all around the world. But I need y'all to do one thing for me. Get out and vote and vote and vote. Get out and vote and vote and vote. Get out and vote and vote and vote. Get out and vote.
And that concludes our 3 episodes on the voting process. I hope that you guys feel empowered and educated enough to go and spread this to other people, to make sure that you guys show up to these polls and use your voice to vote. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you guys at the polls.